The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of ParaX, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
All these voices. All these voices. All these things you can't explain. All these painful memories. They keep haunting you and daunting me. It's just the ghost of you and me. It's just the smoke and gasoline. It's just the ghost of you and me. Of you and me.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me, as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How's everybody tonight?
Tonight's episode is going to be interesting and fun, but it is going to be very, very strange. I came across this article, and it was one of the weirdest damn things I'd ever read, but it was very, very interesting. So we're going to get into that tonight, and without further ado, Nigel, will you go ahead and read that article, please?
Hello everyone. My name is Nigel. And I will be your AI narrator. Tonight's article comes from UFOholic.com. The headline is Martian Giants and a Global Catastrophe Revealed in Declassified CIA Files. It was published March 1st, 2017. This will be the weirdest thing you read all day. In the 1970s and 80s, the CIA and other government agencies experimented with paranormal research, and one of their main focus was remote viewing, also known as clairvoyant travel. This unexplained ability lets users travel outside their bodies to perceive people and places through psychic means. One of the least secret programs making use of psychic abilities is the Surrogate project, a collection of weird experiments centered on remote viewing. The only thing stranger than these experiments is the results and answers they gave. One such experiment is described in a declassified 8-page document made available by the CIA on their electronic reading room. The document exposes the results of a remote viewing session that took place in 1984. An unnamed subject with above-average psychic abilities was taken to a secret location and given a sealed envelope. Over the course of 1 hour, the subject was interviewed while the envelope remained sealed. He had no idea what the envelope contained, but was asked to travel to the time and place written down on a card inside the envelope. These were the coordinates. The planet Mars. Time of interest approximately 1 million year BC. Remember, the test subject had no idea what the envelope contained. He was asked to focus his ability on that particular time and place, and was given different geographical coordinates as the interview went along. These coordinates could have very well pointed to a place on Earth, the Moon, or any other astral body where cardinal points, north, south, are relevant notions. Yet he nailed it. Big time. Interviewers told the subject to travel to 40.89 degrees north, 9.55 degrees west. Here's what he said he saw. I kind of got an oblique view of a pyramid or pyramid form. It's very high. It's kind of sitting in a large depressed area. It's yellowish. Ochre-colored. This description doesn't stand out in particular. At least not before we input the coordinates into Google Mars. 40 degrees. 89 minutes north. 9 degrees. 55 minutes west. Leads us to the Cydonia region, home of the famous face on Mars. The interviewers pressed the subject for details regarding the situation in that particular area. 1 million years ago. The remote viewer focused, and what he saw paints a dire picture. I'm tracking severe clouds. More like a dust storm. It's a geologic problem. I'm looking at the aftereffect of a geologic problem. He was then asked to go back in time before that particular cataclysm had occurred and describe what he could see. Total difference. He replied, "Oh hell. It's like mountains of dirt appear then disappear when you go before. I see large flat surfaces. Very smooth angles. Walls. They're really large though. I mean they're megalithic." The interviewer then asked whether he could see any signs of intelligent activity. And the psychic's response probably blew their minds. On the other hand, the CIA were probably expecting to hear something like this. Why would they attempt to lift the veil of time if they didn't suspect otherworldly beings had built strange structures on Mars? In any case, here's what the remote viewer told them. I'm seeing It's like a perception of a shadow of people. Very tall. Thin. It's only a shadow. It's as if they were there and they're not. Not there anymore. It would seem that by 1 million BC, the ancient Martians had already perished, leaving behind a faint glow of a presence. So the researchers asked the subject to go back even further, to a time when these giant, slim beings were still alive and kicking. I just keep seeing very large people. They appear thin and tall, but they're very large. They're wearing some kind of strange clothes. It's like a really light silk. But it's not a flowing type of clothing. It's like cut to fit. Intrigued by what he revealed, the interviewers gave the man another set of coordinates, and he described the scenery as the inside of a cavern. More like a canyon. I'm looking up the sides of a steep wall that seems to go on forever. And there's a structure with It's like the wall of the canyon itself has been carved. Again, I'm getting very large structures with no intricacies. Just huge sections of smooth stone. He then described huge rooms that made him feel like the ceilings were very high, and the walls very wide. But the most surprising aspect pertaining to this part of the interview was the interviewer's reply. Yes. That would be correct. Judging by this reaction alone, we can infer that the CIA knew about the alien structures on Mars before this interview was attempted. If this is true, they were prodding the remote viewer for answers that would confirm what they already knew. Perhaps they wanted to know the accuracy of a remote viewer's sightseeing abilities. In any case, he described more structures that couldn't have been natural in origin. Roads and aqueducts. Clusters of very white squares, reflecting light and radiating energy. More pyramids with vast interiors. And even a monolith inside one of the pyramids. He even encountered some of the tall beings holding on to hope for rescue while in deep hibernation. His description of the giants in stasis chambers is a bit poetic even. They're ancient people. They're dying. It's past their time. Or age. They're very philosophic about it. He added. They're looking for a way to survive. And they just can't. They can't seem to find their way out. So they're hanging on while they look. Or wait for something to return. Or come up with an answer. What is it they're waiting for? One of the interviewers asked. Evidently there was a group or a party of them that went to find a new place to live. It's like I'm getting all kinds of overwhelming input of the corruption of their environment. It's failing very rapidly. And this group went somewhere to find another place to live. Wow. So if 1 million years ago, the ancient Martians had the technology to travel to a place far away in search of a new home, it's safe to assume their technology was far superior to our own. This brings up two questions that really need answers. What caused the Martian catastrophe that turned their planet into a wasteland and forced its denizens to seek a new home? And was that faraway place they went to, Earth, I wish I could answer the second question. Maybe the answer's yes. Look deep inside you. Do you feel Martian blood coursing through your veins? Then it's a yes. The psychic described the place where the Martian colonists eventually landed as a really crazy place with volcanoes and gas pockets and strange plants. A very volatile place. It's like going from the frying pan into the fire. Difference is there seems to be a lot of vegetation, where the other place did not have it. So it could be Earth. In the distant past this place was crazy. We have, and have had, volcanoes and gas pockets and lush vegetation. For now. At least. As for the first question, the psychic was able to offer the vague depiction of a cosmic event. That could mean a comet/asteroid impact. Or even Mars passing through the tail of a comet and becoming poisoned with its ejecta. I get a globe. It's like a globe that goes through a comet's tail. Or it's through a river or something. But it's all very cosmic. It's like space pictures. If we're to trust the words of this unnamed remote viewer, the history of our own species becomes intertwined with that of a more ancient and civilized race. Or maybe they never came in contact with mankind, as the catastrophe that wiped them out could have happened before Homo sapiens was a thing. In any case, such revelations should change our perceptions about our place in the world, the cosmos, and the grand scheme of things. If there even is such a thing. So should we trust what this guy was saying? I don't know. But if the CIA trusted a whole bunch of them and spent millions of dollars trying to squeeze information out of their minds, there must be something to the phenomenon of remote viewing. The Stargate project officially ended in 1994, but come on. Who would scrap a program that essentially allows you to take advantage of spies that can pass through the barriers of time and space? Can you imagine the type of esoteric knowledge gathered through such ventures? Alas, we may never know what went on behind closed doors, closely guarded by CIA agents. But the depiction of ancient Martians divided into two groups. One destined to die while hoping for salvation, the other in the dangerous search of a new home, has to strike a sensitive chord. Does this story mirror our own future? Will the corruption of our own environment lead us on a similar path to oblivion? In the distant future, will psychic aliens puzzle over our enigmatic demise, like we do over the disappearance of the ancient giant Martians? If so, hi. I believed in you. And that is the end of the article. May I just say, sir, that this was a fantastic article. It was very interesting. Thank you for giving it to me.
Thank you, Nigel, and you are very welcome, brother. So this was a very, very weird article, as I said. We talked in the past about the CIA program that they made the movie The Men Who Stare at Goats about remote viewing and how they would use that to try to spy on other countries and figure out what they were doing and what they were up to, what secret projects they were doing, etc. Well, here we have a case where the CIA brought in one of these remote viewers. And instead of having them concentrate on Russia or China or somebody like that, instead they went all the way to Mars. They wanted the guy to see Mars. And not just Mars today, but Mars like 1 billion years ago, which is crazy. So this guy apparently saw the elimination, the end of the Martian civilization that was there. Now, one interesting thing about this article is it kind of gets into the theory that I've heard other people say, where they think that mankind came from another planet and that we were kind of just brought here, or that we came here because our planet was dying or something, and we had to try to find a new home. Now, there are some things about that theory that kind of make a little bit of sense, and then there's other things that don't. I've often said that it almost seems like we're not from here because we don't fit in with our planet very well at all. When we have a baby, it can't just survive. I mean, we have to really take care of our baby. A lot of animals, when they have their babies, they just leave, and the baby kind of fends for itself pretty quickly. But with humans, it's not like that. We cannot exist on this planet in our natural form. Completely naked, the way we're born, we cannot survive here very long. If we are in too hot of a climate and we don't have clothes on, we are going to end up getting severe sunburn. So we have no real built-in protection from our own sun, which is kind of weird. If you're in a colder environment and you're not wearing clothing, you are going to freeze to death. You're going to end up with frostbite, and you're not going to be doing very well at all. You're going to end up dead. So we can't survive hot environments, and we can't survive cold environments the way that we naturally are. We have to wear clothing. We also are not really equipped to hunt very well without technology tools. We're not equipped to eat a whole lot of things on this planet. There's a very thin margin of acceptable foods that we're able to actually consume and not get sick. We don't have the stronger acids or the gut biome to be able to eat things like vultures and stuff like that can eat, with like rotting putrid flesh. We can't do it. We'll get sick. We can't even eat like a chicken unless it's cooked properly. If you eat the chicken raw, you're going to end up with salmonella, you're going to die. So we can't really feed ourselves in our natural state either, because there's a lot of things that we can't eat raw or we'll get sick. So if it's not for the invention of fire or the discovery of fire, mankind would be in a very bad way as far as feeding ourselves goes. So there's a lot of stuff like that that makes me wonder why we are here on this planet. We're not equipped to survive here. Luckily, we have our brain, which enables us to adapt and overcome and come up with inventions and technology that can take care of us. But in our natural state, we're kind of screwed, to be honest with you. Also, we can't go very long without water. You can only survive, they say, 3 days without water, but that's kind of not a real number, because granted, you might not die until the third day, but after the first 24 hours, you are extraordinarily nauseous and vomiting, most likely. You've got debilitating headaches and muscle cramps. And by partway through day 2, you are pretty much at the point where you're comatose. And your organs are beginning the process of shutting down. So, in all reality, you only have about a day. You got to drink every day. If you go a whole day without drinking, by that next day, you are in hurting status, big time. And you are not going to be able to bounce back from that in order to get yourself better. Especially considering we can't drink water in its natural state right out of the rivers or lakes or anything like that, because there's giardia and stuff like that that'll make us super sick. So we have to boil our water before we can even drink it. Now, most animals don't have to do that. Animals are able to drink the water with the pathogens in it and be completely fine. Damn near everything on this planet can survive like that, but we can't. We have to boil the water. So the reason I got into all of that was to say that there is some merit to the idea that either we are not originally from this planet, or at the very least, we are not designed to be on this planet very well. We don't fit this planet very well. Now, whether or not we actually come from another planet or not, who really knows? I mean, the Bible says that God created us here, so that's what I'm going with. But honestly, it's hard to tell where our origin actually was. If the Bible is correct, which I believe it is, then that means that God created us in His image here on earth. So I'm going to say that's the way it is. But I can't rule out completely that theory that potentially we could have come from another planet, because there is evidence that supports the idea that we are not very good on this one. So that's the first thing about this article that was really, really interesting to me. Another thing that was really interesting was the idea that if we are not the Martians that have come here and adapted to this planet, then maybe we ran into them. Maybe we had some kind of contact with them. Maybe not. I did an episode of Paranormal News not too long ago where they were talking about the fact that aliens have been here for a long time and they're just kind of camouflaged. So they look like us. They talk like us. Everybody thinks that they're human. It could be your best friend, but it's actually an alien in disguise. I mentioned in that video I told Nigel when he did it that was almost the plot of one of my favorite movies of all time, which was They Live with Roddy Piper. That was an amazing movie. And in that movie, the aliens blended in with us. We couldn't tell the difference unless you had a pair of these special sunglasses that he found that enabled him to actually see what the aliens look like. If you have not seen that movie, check it out. It is spectacular. You will absolutely love it. But that is a interesting idea too. So what if the Martians had a catastrophic event on their planet and they had to leave to find a new place? I mean, we're their neighbors. We're just next door, really. I mean, it's a long ass way, but we're really close in space terms. So let's say they came here. Now, if they came here 1 billion years ago, then we weren't here 1 billion years ago. At least probably not. So most likely they did not run into us, like mankind. But they could have came here and lived on this planet. And then when we came here, or were created here, there was going to be a conflict between us. And maybe there weren't that many left of them, and there were a whole hell of a lot of us eventually. So maybe they decided to blend in so that there wouldn't be a problem. Especially considering they saw that we're kind of crazy. You know what I mean? Mankind, humans are a very volatile species. And we are prone to go to war and to do horrible things to each other. And we do even worse to our enemies. So I could definitely see an alien species, especially if there's not a whole lot of them, saying, you know what, maybe it'd be better if these guys didn't know we were here. Either we kind of stay out of sight, or maybe we blend in with them so that they don't realize that we're aliens. They think that we're them. That completely makes sense. So is any of that true? Well, we know for a fact that the CIA did use remote viewers to spy on other countries. We know that guaranteed fact. It's in their documents. And this story comes from a declassified CIA document. I'll be interested to see the TV show when it comes out, because they said they're doing a TV show about this, like a documentary style thing, where they're going to be presenting a lot more evidence and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what they have, but it does say in the article that this is based on a declassified CIA file. So the CIA paperwork, according to them, says that they brought a remote viewer in and asked him to look at Mars 1 billion years ago. And he was able to see the end of the Martian civilization. which is interesting as hell. So if all of that is true, then that means that there are life on other planets, or at least there was life on Mars at one time. Now, we already suspect that because of several things on Mars, such as the face on Mars, that is like a pyramid-looking building that is on the face of Mars. And we think that that was put there by an alien civilization. The Martian civilization built that at some point in the past. So that would prove, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that there was life on Mars. Now, the other thing that's super interesting is when they brought the remote viewer in, they told him when and where to look. So that means that they already either knew or suspected that there was a Martian civilization and that they wanted to see how it ended. Now, could that be because our government is in contact with the survivors from that civilization? Maybe they came to Earth. Maybe they came to another planet in the solar system. And they ended up coming here at some point. And our government has spoken with them. And they know the story of what happened from them. We do have documentation from the government that they have been in contact with alien races before. Some people say that they've been in contact with as many as 36 different alien species before. I don't know if that number is accurate, but there's a lot of people that are pretty credible that are saying that. So that is the question. Did the Martian people come here? Or if they went somewhere else, did they eventually come here? I would say that most likely that is a good possibility because the CIA had to know somehow what happened there in order to prompt that remote viewer to look there in the first place. Now, it's possible that one of their other psychics, because they worked with remote viewers, they worked with psychics of all kinds, that one of their other psychics saw that and said, hey, man, I just saw the end of Mars. And so they wanted to bring in another guy to kind of get a second opinion and see if he saw the same thing. That's 100% possible. That could be the reason. Or it could be that we have been in contact with the surviving Martians and they told us what happened to their civilization. To me, that makes a little bit more sense than two separate psychics seeing the end of a Martian civilization a million years in the past and on a different planet. To me, it makes a lot more sense that somebody would just have told them, hey, this is how our civilization ended. I mean, to me, that's the more logical and the more realistic possibility. Although they're both kind of out there. But something has to explain how the CIA knew where to point the remote viewer. Something has to explain that. They didn't just pick that out of a hat and say, hey, just for giggles, why don't we have this guy look at Mars a billion years ago? There had to be a reason for it. So that makes me think that they knew about Mars, they knew about the Martians, they knew about the way that civilization ended. So that being said, what I'm going to do now is throw over to Old Boy and get his opinion on the article on remote viewing and anything else that he wants to touch on. So Old Boy, go ahead, brother.
Thank you, buddy. You know, when I first have heard about your remote viewing, it was on Art Bell. And I heard him do it a couple times. They did it for, I think they did a thing for Rush Limbaugh. They had everybody do a remote thing to get him healed. Because they said if you have so many people at the same time thinking the same thing, it could happen. I never saw that. I seen some of it. I never seen all the movie, so I don't know really much about that. I've heard about it, about the goats and stuff like that. Now, the whole Martian thing, that's a possibility. Like James was saying earlier, if you think about it, we can't survive unless we do certain things, wear clothes. In the summertime and winter, but you can only take so much off in the summertime, but or you'll be running around nude. But you can't be in the sun too long, you'll burn. Like he was saying, you can't be in the cold too long or you'll get frostbite and you could die and get sick. So it makes some sense if you think about it. Now, I'm going to throw a theory out in a couple minutes after this, and it might throw some people off. And whatever you want to think, like he says before, go ahead and put it in the comments and tell us what you think. I think there's a strong possibility Martians have been here before. I don't know if I would call them Martians. They might be from another planet. We don't even know. There's different species, I think, of aliens. But he was saying they live. That's funny because I watched that movie a couple weeks ago with Ronnie Piper. I believe they blended in for thousands of years, millions of years. I think they have something to do with our DNA. This is my opinion. They know what we're about. We might have been brought here. Maybe all these giants and gods we've talked about in the past, maybe that's who these people are. The giants might be them, and they're like gods to us pretty much. I mean, they're pretty much a walking god if you think about it. They're big and huge, and then there's some of them are smaller than us, but they're just smarter than us. They're just, we might be one of their experiments that's gone wrong, and they said, well, we don't care about you. They put us on a planet to see what we're due, and we're pretty much like James says, we destroy ourselves and destroy our enemies, and we do horrible things to each other. So maybe that's why, like, we're a lost cause, and they threw us to the world to see what we were going to do. And maybe everything we hear about with religion and stuff, maybe that's what our fate's going to be. We're going to destroy ourselves, or they're going to destroy us. And, maybe that's how at that time, we're different than, we've seen these beings that can do things. We could think they're gods, and they do stuff that gods do. At the time, we would think, because most people thought the world was flat at one time and found that it wasn't. Back then, just say like 10,000 years ago, if they're flying around in spaceships, like they said, chariots of fire, think about it, that's going to be looking like there's a god. Maybe they portrayed to be gods. We don't know. You guys remember Stargate? I don't know if you guys seen that with Kurt Russell, where they go through the Stargate to another dimension, and they know about Earth though. So it could make sense. If you look at some of the writings in Egypt and some of these other places, I think the Amazon, all these other, they look like pyramids. They have writings on the wall. It looks like spaceships and stuff that you would see now. So it would make sense. Do I 100% believe it? I don't know. There's already proof of aliens. People, I think they showed they did a poll, and like 75% of people believe it. Aliens exist, or extraterrestrials. So that's a possibility, guys. If you think about it, like James made a good point earlier, and I'm going to keep going on this one. That's pretty good, because we don't adapt well to this planet. Yeah, we live here because of the oxygen, but we have to get in shelter or we'll die because of the elements. Some people survive, though. That's not 100% true, but they might have that gene in them. To all we know, they might be alien. They say that, I think RO negative is alien. So there's talks about that. So I might be saying the blood type wrong, but James will probably correct me in a couple minutes anyway when I'm done. But they say that they have something, have blood from another race of aliens, some other planet. I forget what he can probably talk. He probably knows what I'm talking about. I forget to say the name. I don't know how to say it. It's hard to say. I'll butcher it, but he'll tell you after I'm done talking about it in a minute. So I believe it. I believe that they probably masked themselves through some way. And there's rumors of the reptilians, even being up in presidents and queens and stuff. There's rumors of that. So shape-shifting aliens, that's where we might get the shapeshifters from. All these legends could be aliens. They could just look like that, and we just think that that's what they are, but they're really aliens. Shapeshifters could have came from another dimension for all we know. I'm just throwing out ideas out there, guys. I don't know what you guys think. Let us know what you think of the show. I know you guys like to do that, but what do you think? You think some of these things that we think are ghosts and demons are just alien creatures that we don't know about? That's another theory I was thinking about. Maybe these are just things that we think they're ghosts, but they might be from another dimension or they're alien, for all we know. And this is just how they are. And we might not want to know what they really are. You know, the human species has a tendency to mess with things they're not supposed to mess with and try to pry into things. Like you see people like in horror movies, they're always, oh, let's go look what that noise is. Why? Why would you want to look what that noise is? And it ends up being something bad. They die or they get eaten or something by some creature or get killed by some monster or maniac. But we have this tendency to keep doing the same dumb stuff over and over and over again. And that's what humans are. You know, if you think about it, we're a mess. If you think about it really, look what happens. We'll be friends with people for years, 50, 60 years. One thing that we don't like about them, we'll turn our backs on them. Or we just don't like each other anymore. It happens. You could love somebody for 20 years and all of a sudden it just goes rare. You just lose. I don't think you really lose love for anybody. You love somebody, you love them. You can't just, oh, I'm not loving. You just love them in a different way. They're just not compatible to you anymore. You've changed. People change. It happens. There's just some people you meet and they can adapt with you. It's like with environments. It's like you adapt to being in the weather. You know, some people can adapt to being married. They can adapt to whatever changes are going on. You both change. That's where marriages last for. There's some people who, they're great at first, but 5-10 years later down the line, and this is just a theory I have, that they just change. They turn into a different person, and that's what happens. They have different likes, and maybe some of the person you thought they weren't even that person. They portrayed it to be married to you, and then, you know, people change, or somebody comes along and ruins it. But there's always a reason for everything. So remember that, you know, and there's maybe sometimes it looks like it's going to be a hard time, but down the line, it ends up being great. You dodged a bullet. But we have a tendency to do the opposite of what we're supposed to do. And that's with everyone. And we keep doing it. So there's just something about us. I think that we were engineered some way. I just have this opinion. Because like James was saying, we don't do good in this planet. Unless we made it good, but we're always surviving, like barely. You know, we had to make this or we won't survive. We didn't have air conditioning. People would be pissed, you know, but there's people who don't have it, man. And they just live in a hut and they've been doing it for thousands of years. So the Amish have been doing it without electricity for hundreds of years. So they know how to make need, but I think people forgot that we were supposed to just have, you know, supposed to live a certain way, and we got bored throughout life to make things to do. And I think the things to do are more important to people than just trying to survive. And we're no longer surviving anymore because of that. So I think that's a lot of what the problem is with a lot of people. So with being human, not people, sorry, I rephrase it to being human. I think that we have that problem in this earth, that we don't adapt well to things. And other species do. They get some way of surviving. We have to wear clothes. Maybe we weren't meant here. Like Mars, if you look at Mars, maybe we're from there because it's a lot warmer certain times a year. And it's a certain weather. Because if you ever notice, we could survive in 70 degree, 60 degree weather and everything's fine. But anything over 80 degrees and under 50 degrees, we can't deal with it. Well, maybe wherever we were at, we're at that temperature. And we survived with no problem. So that's about what I can think about that whole article. And thank you, Nigel, again. I never really thank you, but thank you, buddy, for reading a great a story to us, or article. But I kind of agree with James. I think that we might have Martians. No, I don't see it really say Martians, aliens, or extraterrestrials, or Venus dwellers, or whatever you want to call them, moon men, alien. Maybe they're just here, and they've been here, and they disguise themselves of us, and they're just watching us like a game. Maybe we're a game that we don't even know, to see how far we'll go destroy ourselves. So that being said, there you go, James.
The blood type that old boy was talking about is Rh negative blood type that they think might be an alien blood. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what people are saying. Another option here is, if we look back in our own past, at one point in time you had several different species of humanoid on this planet. You had Gigantopithecus, which is what I think that Bigfoot is. You had Homo floresiensis, which is basically a hobbit. I mean, that's exactly what these dudes look like. They were tiny, about the size of a hobbit. They were built like a hobbit. I think that's where the legend of hobbits comes from. And the legend of dwarves comes from, is Homo floresiensis. You had Homo sapien, which is us. You had Neanderthal. And you had a bunch of others as well. I mean, before Homo sapien was Homo erectus, you had a bunch of different ones. But let's look at, for example, the Neanderthal. Now, the theory used to be that human beings, Homo sapiens, and Neanderthals were competing for the same resources. And this caused a massive species-wide war between us. And even though the Neanderthal was tougher than us and bigger as far as bulkier than us, and a lot more densely packed muscle and everything like that, that we won the war and wiped them out. But that is not the case. That is not what actually happened. Because now we know from DNA studies that we all have Neanderthal genetics inside of us. So instead of fighting the Neanderthal, which I'm sure there was some of that happened, we made love, not war. We bred the Neanderthal out of existence. Through interbreeding between the Neanderthal and us, we produced generation after generation after generation of mixed babies. And eventually, the species that used to be Neanderthal was gone. And logically, that means that the species that used to be Homo sapiens was also gone. So what you had left over was a mix of the two. That is why we have Neanderthal in our genome. Now, I'd be willing to bet that that probably happened with other species of humans as well. Because why would we only have done that with Neanderthals? I mean, there's multiple other species of hominoid that the potential was there for the exact same circumstances to have happened. So the reason I bring that up is, what if the Martians came here and we bred with them? And the reason why you don't see giant Martians anymore is because they're us, in the same way that Neanderthal is us. Could that be the reason why we have giganticism? Could that be the reason why we have some people that are 7, 8 feet tall? Maybe. Could that be what these stories from the Bible about the Nephilim are based on? Could the Bible have been describing aliens when they were talking about angels or demons? That's one thing that a lot of people talk about. I mean, I cannot put a video up on YouTube about aliens without somebody saying that they're actually demons in disguise. A lot of people believe that. So could that be a possibility? Could the giant Martians that came to Earth, could that be the Nephilim? Because remember, when they first came here, they would have been as big as possible as they were on Mars, right? As they mated with humans, the offspring would have gotten a little bit shorter each time, until they would have settled in at a taller than us, but not crazy tall. Well, of around in between like a 7 to 8 foot range. Because the normal person is not that tall. The normal person is, I think it's 5'11", something like that is the average. I'm 6'5". I'm gigantic compared to most people, but I'm dwarfed by people like Shaq, for example, who's well over 7 feet. Could that be why we have some people that are much, much larger? Because that giant bloodline is in our genome. And if those particular genes are active, then you're going to be big. If they're not, you're going to be smaller. Makes sense. Now, is that because of Martian giants, or is that because of Nephilim? Angels mating with human beings. Either way, you have something other than human mating with a human. Now, genetically, for that to work, it would have to be another hominoid species in order for there to even be a baby created. Now, God made us in His image, but He did not make the angels in His image. Now, with angels, we're talking about a supernatural being, but they drank blood in order to take on a human form, to leave their estate. As I went through all of this in the What Are Demons and Where Do They Come From episode, so that you can go to that episode and listen to it, and you can understand all of the specifics about it. I don't want to get deep into it yet on this episode, but there was a supernatural element to that pairing between angels and human beings, so that kind of puts it outside of the realm of physics a little bit. But for an alien species to be able to mate with a human species, that alien species would also have to be a hominoid species and genetically close enough to us to produce a viable offspring. Very, very interesting. Could the Martian people have been close enough to us genetically to produce an offspring? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. It depends on how they're built. I mean, from what the article said, it seems like they were a hominoid species. They were walking on 2 legs. They were in the shape of a man, essentially, just a lot bigger. So that would tell me that genetically, there's a lot of similarities there. We don't know what the internal structures were. We don't know how they were built on the inside. We don't know what they breathe. We don't know what they eat, etc. But at least superficially, we have similarities. So potentially there could have been enough similarities on a genetic level as well to produce a viable offspring. It's one of those things that we'll never know until we get more information. But that's one possibility as well. I'll be interested to see when this show goes to YouTube, when we put the replay up, what you guys think about it. What do you think of the idea of Martian giants coming to Earth to avoid a catastrophe on their planet? Because that's essentially what the CIA document says. That's what the remote viewer saw. And that kind of is what the CIA already knew. He was just confirming it for them. So what do you think of that idea? Do you think that they came here or went somewhere else? Do you think that we breeded with them? Do you think we are them, just evolved? Let me know down in the comments section what y'all's thinking is on it. Because this is one of those ones where there's really no right answer. We can make educated guesses. We can kind of go back and forth with it. But with the information we have, there's really no way to know for sure. There is no real right answer as far as this discussion goes right now, because we don't have the information to conclude whether it's correct or not. So we're just speculating. But it is like they say, it is an educated guess. It's not like we're just throwing something out there and seeing if it sticks, and we have no idea what we're talking about. It's based on knowledge, it's based on science, but we just don't have the particulars. So with that being said, I'm going to throw it back over to Old Boy and get his final sum up and then his shout outs, and we will wrap up. Old Boy, go ahead, brother.
Thank you, brother. The average size of a man is 5'10", a woman's 5'6". I was looking that up while he was talking about that. So, Martian giants, yeah, you never know. They could have been the giants on Earth. They said they might have went to Planet X, and there's a theory on that. So, it could be the giants of the Nephilim that we know about. You never know. Just throwing up a theory. I don't know if I believe that or not, but just wanted to know if you guys enjoyed the show. I'm glad you did. Thank you for following us on Parax Radio. Every Sunday nights, 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern, technically Monday morning. Parax on Tuesday, reruns, 5 Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Same thing. It's just older shows and the best of shows. If you want to follow us on YouTube, subscribe to James Hershey's YouTube page. You guys want to get some merchandise, he'll tell you where to go. Shirts, all kinds of cool stuff there. So I hope you guys have a good day, night, good week. It's September now. We're winding down through summer. It's going to be fall soon. So I hope you guys are enjoying. So you have a good night. Misfits, sugar ladies, monster lovers, and demon hunters. I love you and great. Have a good night. Bye. Blessed be.
I, for one, am very, very grateful that fall is coming. I am not a fan of summer. I grew up over in Germany, so I had a much more moderate climate than where I live now. I spent some time in Texas, which was extremely hot, but it wasn't barely any humidity at all, so it wasn't all that bad. It was hot, but it wasn't terrible. I live now in the mountains of Virginia, and it is absolutely humid as hell here. In the summertime, it is oppressive heat. It just seems to weigh you down and suck the life right out of you. So I am not a fan. My favorite time of year is fall. I love it when it starts to cool down. I like when the leaves fall off the trees. It's harvest time, which I've always loved. So I'm super, super stoked that fall is coming and we don't have to deal with summer anymore. Thank you all for watching. The YouTube channel is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. That's where everything is. We have every episode of Staring. We have every episode of Tales from the Abyss, which is the TV show that we did. We have a ton of episodes now of Paranormal News. We're just about to 200 episodes on that. And I do one of those pretty much every day. The only time I'm not going to have a Paranormal News episode coming onto the channel is if we do Staring or Tales. On that day, we'll either have Staring or if we do any new Tales, we'll have that up there. But every other day, it's usually an episode of Paranormal News. We've got some really, really interesting ones that we've done recently, and we've got some really good ones coming up that I'm working on. So make sure that you go to the YouTube channel and subscribe. It's 100% free, and you can enjoy it. The address is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. And in the comment section on each video is all the links. Okay, that's where you can find the link to the merchandise store, to where you can get shirts and hoodies and towels and coffee mugs and bumper stickers, etc. There's all kinds of stuff there. There's a bunch of different designs. It's really good quality stuff. I keep it really, really cheap for you. So if you're into merch and you want to support the show, that's where you can do that. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. This is one that when I read this article, it was just so wonderfully strange. I'm a guy that loves weird stuff. Okay, I love weird stuff and I love weird people. I like things that are out of the ordinary. I like things that I don't see every day. And here we had an article that was pretty much as weird as it gets. I mean, you had a psychic remote viewer working with the CIA that looked 1 billion years into the past to another planet to see the end of a Martian civilization made up of giants. I mean, you had everything in this article just about. The only thing it was missing was like ghosts and vampires and stuff. But other than that, it had damn near everything. I mean, this was a great article. And it was something I had never really seen or read before. I mean, I've seen the idea that life might have come from another planet, that mankind might have originated on another planet and came here. I've seen that theory before. But there was so many different components of this one that was just so different and so amazing that I really enjoyed. So I hope that you enjoyed it too. That's my point. So with that being said, I love you guys. I appreciate all your support, and we will catch you on the next one. Until we speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.